Welcome to KRWG Public Media 2024 election coverage featuring the race for Doña County Clerk. Hello, I'm Johnny Coker. KRWG Public Media and the League of Women Voters are pleased to present this forum. The rules for this forum are that the candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question and should not mention their opponent in the answer. My co-moderator for this forum is Meg Irish with the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico. We welcome incumbent Democratic candidate, Dr. Amanda López Askin. KRWG invited Republican candidate Cheryl DeYoung to join us. She informed us that she could not attend. So let's start with the first question. What skills, education, and prior experience qualify you for this office?
Well, first of all, thank you, Johnny, and thank you as well for having me. I appreciate any opportunity to talk to our community, and I'm a three-time Aggie, so anytime I can come back to the most beautiful campus in the Southwest, I definitely take advantage of that. Yes, my name is Amanda López Askin. I am the incumbent running for Doña County Clerk. I have been the clerk for 6 years, and I think it's important to punctuate that. In 2018, I was appointed as the previous clerk left, and there was an opening. I decided to jump in, and I was appointed by the commission. So during my time, there has been ups and downs for sure. As you know, we had a pandemic, which was very, very impactful on elections in a lot of different ways, and not all bad necessarily, and we can talk about that in a bit, but I've administered 10 elections. I have a diverse background in working in public and private, including a stint on the Board of Regents for New Mexico State University when I was earning my PhD. That was definitely an honor. A $600 million organization and helping support the growth and some of the challenges that those large organizations have was an honor, and I was fortunate to serve. My background is in mental health. I have experience as a clinician, but also as a community educator. I worked as a school mental health advocate for the Office of School and Adolescent Health, supporting best practices in suicide prevention, bullying prevention, and policy work. So it was a windy road to get to my clerk position, but here I am, and I'm thrilled to be doing it.
All right, and next question.
If elected, what are your highest priorities?
Well, I'm really proud to say that when I first started this job in 2018, and it is a job. Sometimes I think there's a perception if you're an elected official that you kind of wander and you might make a statement or two and have, a stump speech and photo ops. But the reality is the job of the county clerk is a day-to-day administrative job. So the person who has this job needs to understand that balance of administrative work, being able to lead a staff, being able to create relationships that will lead to the best outcomes for staff. I really believe that if you make your staff a priority, if you elevate them as much as you can, you give them as many opportunities as you can, that in itself will assist the work that you do. The work gets done better, and the community is happier. So that was definitely will continue to be a priority. When I first started, there were 35% down in staffing, morale was very low, and the turnover was high. I'm proud to say that since I've been in the position, I've been able to shore up all of our empty positions, as well as add 6 full-time positions. And if you work in government, you know that's very, very difficult. And again, that's when relationship building helps, because I was able to do that with the support of the commission and administration. Additionally, I serve from a lens of, we call it restorative justice, but a lens of empathy, and I think that has created an environment that's excellent for our staff. I was able to lobby for and get nearly $4 million for a brand new warehouse, which is a huge deal, and so one of my first priorities is definitely seeing that through, because we did break ground. But there's a lot of accomplishments, but there's always more work to do.
All right, thank you for that. And on to question 3. What steps would you take to enhance voter interest and participation in the voting process?
So unfortunately in Doña County we do have a low rate of participation. And when you think that we have about 130,000 eligible voters that are able to vote, and we're happy if we get half, that's unfortunate. So any way that we can engage the community, doing forums like this, not even as a candidate, but just as an informational, as a clerk, is always helpful. Being out in the community, again, politics is this, for me, that it equals relationships. I think politics gets a bad rap, but if you're building relationships to support the policy that you're working on, then I think that is your success is much more likely to happen. I do think that We are fortunate to live in a state that is very pro-voter, and we, for example, by law, must provide everything in English and Spanish. That is something that is very pro-voter and is very specific. I will also say that we have great relationships with the schools. We try to touch every senior before they're out of school so we can make sure they're registered to vote. We offer voter registration agent training so we can train community members to do that. But I think also combating misinformation and malinformation is very, very powerful, because the average person may want to participate, but what's the point if it doesn't matter? So really taking on misinformation and malinformation in a way that empowers my fellow New Mexicans to believe in our system. Because we are ranked #1 in election administration by MIT, which I encourage anybody to Google, and that means that we really have implemented best practices for elections and that we do a great job statewide.
All right. And next question, Meg.
What measures would you employ to improve voting access?
Again, I think that we are so fortunate to live in New Mexico. I was a part of a large omnibus legislative bill last year, and I testified almost every week in support of it. And it did things that I really hoped would increase access. One of those things, which can be controversial, was basically returning citizens or felons who have, otherwise known as felons, who are returning to our community. They're able to vote. There's not a lot of paperwork they have to get through. They don't have to. If they're in the community and they're eligible to vote, that is one way that I think that's pro-voter. We also need to continue to have conversations about security and funding elections. Elections are historically underfunded, and so we have a great Secretary of State, Maggie Toulouse-Oliver. Again, those relationships she has with our legislators has helped us every year be able to cover elections. But making elections a priority and not having to go back to the legislature and ask for money to continue to do the work, I think is really important. I also think it would be great to have some voter education legislation and voter education funds available. Other states do guides like the League of Women Voters do. They do it in a nonpartisan way. I think we can do that, and that would help outreach in terms of our community and kind of the small rural areas that count on some of the print media for sure.
All right, and on to the next question. Dr. López Askin, what steps will you take to ensure that elections are safe in the county?
Mm-hmm. So when you say safe, I'm assuming you mean safe and secure. The vote is,
I think we mean like ensuring safety of voters at voting booths.
Oh, so
and
physical
things.
safety.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
no,
ma'am.
thank you for that clarification. So since 2020 and since all of the kind of steps that we had to take in 2020 to accommodate a pandemic, one of the things that was really helpful is the absentee vote, which mail-in is what we call it now, more so. That can be helpful for voters who have any concerns about a polling location. But I will tell you, I am in many rooms of security in terms of having access to federal information, statewide information with law enforcement, and we're always in tune to anything that could potentially be coming, because they often do know. But I don't have concerns about a large group of people heading to a polling location. I don't have concerns about that necessarily. What I do worry about are individuals, and that is something that's not predictable, right? I can't predict if an individual has something in their mind and they decide to go to a polling location. So we empower them to make decisions on site, the election officials. We do everything we can do to offer great customer service. We never, if somebody believes they have the right to vote, they are able to vote, and then if we have to issue them a provisional ballot, we'll do that. We want to see people in and out, and we want to see people happy when they come and go, and that's kind of the point of good customer service at the election sites. So as far as safety, the training is going to be invaluable, and empowering our presiding judges at each of the sites as well.
Thank you for that. And next question.
If elected, would you make changes with the clerk's operations to provide greater transparency with the public? And if you could explain your answer, please.
what I will say is we are also responsible, not just for elections, that always gets the most amount of attention, but we're also, we have a robust recording and filing site of our office. We are the historians of our community. We offer business licenses, marriage licenses, we hold liens, we work closely with title companies and real estate. So there's a whole other end of our office, and I like to think that we offer great customer service. I get great feedback about that. In terms of transparency, embedded into law, which is what we have to follow, are a lot of avenues and routes for the public to have access to any part of the election process. That would include being an election official, working at each site. There's nothing more transparent than being a part of an election, working it from beginning to end, seeing how the process works, watching the checks and balances. For example, the average voter may not know that at each voting location, there has to be a fair breakdown of political parties in terms of who are our election officials. That creates that level of accountability. We have our machines, obviously, that count the votes, and there's that level of accountability. You hear that ding, you can see one, up, and usually we have two. I call it the ding of democracy. So that is always helpful. But I would encourage anybody who has any questions about elections or anything that we do to work on election and see the processes we have. Trainings are open to the public. People can come, community members can come, watch a training, see the ins and outs, the nuts and bolts, see all the layers that we have, not just before an election and during an election, but the auditing that happens afterwards. Those are all public processes that the public is invited to. Every single one of our machines is certified, and that means every iteration of the ballot goes through every machine. That's a public process as well.
All right, thank you for that. And on to question 7. What do you feel this office can do to take on misinformation surrounding our elections and voting?
So in 2018, there was a very high-profile election that I was involved with 5 days into my new term, and that was really fun. And so it was trial by fire, but it was actually really helpful because at the time, what I had to do was dig in and learn about elections, really understand them. So over the course of 2 years, when I decided to run in 2020, that is something that I made a priority. There has been a concentrated effort to offer not just misinformation, but malinformation. Things like the clerk takes ballots home in her trunk. Not only is that wrong, against law, et cetera, but it's actually leading to for people to be angry and aggressive. It's full-on malinformation. And so when we talk about misinformation and malinformation as you take it head on, we've done things like myth or reality on our website. The Secretary of State has fact or fiction. We take on those questions that people ask. Anytime anybody offers public comment at a commission meeting that's misinformation or malinformation, like we don't have paper ballots. Well, yeah, we do. We don't, kind of the things that they list. I'll get up and defend our elections, and I will do that at every opportunity. You know, we are, again, ranked #1 in election administration, and I think it's something that all New Mexicans should know, and we should be proud of. We do a great job, and there's not a lot of lists that we're #1 for, and definitely this is one that we want to promote and talk about continually to give voters confidence in our system and our processes.
All right, thank you for that. And next question.
What do you believe are important measures that clerk's office can take to ensure that voters are aware of where they can vote?
Well, I don't know if we can be more social than we are. If you haven't followed any of our social medias, please do. DAC Clerk is our moniker on quite a few, but we're on all of the socials. We also have a podcast. We also have a YouTube page. We invite community members to come in and participate, and it's not just about elections. Often it's about the history of Doña County. We have an amazing, rich history, and we have a lot of the documents in our office that offer support for that history. So being accessible, I think being out in the community is something that we love to do. And when you're fully staffed, as we are, we're able to do more things that focus on people and outreach.
For sure. All right, next question. So how can your office address election workforce challenges?
Well, we had to address them in 2020. And what happened was during the pandemic, you had vulnerable people over the age of 65. Many of them had physical ailments or family members that had them that they didn't want to expose themselves, understandably, to COVID. So we had a mass exodus of folks that said, I want to, but I can't work. So that forced us to say, think outside the box. Well, during COVID, all we had was Zoom. I want to say I did probably between 30 and 40 Zooms at that point. If you put me in front of a Zoom, I would talk to them, whether it was Chicano Studies, student groups, whether it was Seroptimus Club, whether it was the NAACP, doing outreach to all of those folks and helping them understand that they are the infrastructure of elections. It's not me, it's not my chief deputy, Caroline Zamora. We lead the charge, but at the end of the day, our community runs our elections and we literally could not do it without them. So also encouraging younger people. We had somebody say that they were working because their grandmother couldn't, and that kind of just, it's like everything good in the world. We've kept those folks. We had parents come and I would say, have your 15 or 16-year-old come and work for us. That means that voting will be institutionalized for them. They will understand the process. It'll be something that they'll do. So outreach in all the ways. We also have made a concentrated effort in following up with people and making sure they're interested, letting them know what the job entails, giving them support, giving them training, and increasing their pay. I think there's this idea that it's a volunteer position. It is a paid position, and election day you can make up to $400 for that one day of work. So that's a motivation as well.
All right, thank you for that answer. And Meg, question 10.
Do you feel that the voting age in the United States should be lowered?
I think about some of the narratives we have around people who vote and are uninformed, or they don't think they should be voting. Oh, they shouldn't vote. They can't even, do their laundry. And I definitely understand that perspective. What I will say is in New Mexico, you can register to vote at 17 and vote at 17 if you're going to be 18 by the general election. So if there's a primary and you're going to be 18, you're going to say November 1st, you're going to turn 18, you can vote as a 17-year-old in primary. And then that leads into you actually voting for the general. So that's something that New Mexico already does. I think the question comes up, is 16 years old too young? I think at this point, I would definitely consider thinking about how that would affect other voters overall. And I think that I have received a lot of negative feedback about 16-year-olds. I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to them specifically participating in elections that affect them directly, like a school board. School board makes policy, they're in school. And if people have this idea that there's like tons of young people behind a gate waiting to vote, the sad part is if we did extend that age, it would probably be few and far between. And I hate to say that because I wish that weren't the case, but turnout tells me that young people vote. It's increasing and we're always encouraging that. But the idea that they're waiting to just can't help, they want to do it so badly, I wish that were the case, but you probably would have those concentrated students who are already very focused on those things voting, and it would be few and far between.
All right, next question. How do you feel this office can manage election information overload?
Oh. Wow, that's a big question. How do I believe my office can handle the overload? Well, I think you have to dig through it. You have to parse out what is accurate. You have to parse out what is helpful. I'm not ever close to feedback, even though social media can be a very cruel place. I will never disregard what anybody says, even if they're doing it in a cloud of insults, which frankly happens enough, because there may be some validity. We have to take feedback, and if it's valid, we should apply it and figure out how we can have our best practices align with those. I will say, like, for example, we have a survey that we offer our election officials after they are done working for us. And it's not always, they don't love us all the time, right? It's hard work. Sometimes they get frustrated with the training or something has happened. And we have taken a lot of the feedback that our election officials, otherwise known as poll workers, have. We've taken that feedback and we've utilized it to change our trainings. I always say, like, people are behind policy. If you talk to the people and you can convince them and it makes sense, you just have to, kind of work through it. And so that's what we do. Take in all the information, parse out what's good, accurate, and helpful, and set aside things that are not helpful, and then to do what I can to support our staff.
And now on to question 12, Meg.
How can technology help play a role in the experience that voters have in Doña County?
Well, technology already plays a huge role in elections in Doña County and across our state. We have 33 counties in New Mexico, which you have 33 clerks in New Mexico, and we all administer elections pretty much the same way. I think consistency is really important, and building that over time has really made, I think, elections helpful because you can track every ballot. For example, if you ordered an absentee ballot and you decided, you know, I'm gonna vote in person. You head over to your voting location and you give us your information, we identify you, and we find out that you have an outstanding ballot. We know this. We know that there's an outstanding ballot that you requested by mail. So the idea that we're not tracking, we can't see through the U.S. Postal Service what's being scanned through, we can do all of those things. Technology is already helping us create that accountability and security that voters want to know exists. We also are utilizing all of the technology that we have to offer, you know, great information via all of our socials and connecting with voters that way. And we often get questions through our message box that way. So technology, it creates a lot of avenues. I know there are always concerns. What does that really mean? The narrative about elections and the machines, and taking that head on. So technology is utilized and will continue to be utilized really as much as we can. I count on a machine to count better than I could, quite frankly. Yeah. It's like heading to Walmart and expecting me to add it up, and you know, I really appreciate that machine in that moment.
Right. All right. On to the next question. Do you feel poll watchers make a difference in voter confidence? Please explain your answer.
Well, there's three roles that the public can have at an election site. One would be a challenger, one would be a watcher, and the other would be an observer. Observer is really more of an academic process. For example, if I was getting my PhD in political science and I just literally wanted to see what kind of shoes does everybody have coming out. It's like that simple. Watchers make sure that the process is being followed, and if they've gone through training and that is now required by law. But what I will say is the more eyes on an election, the better. I think it's great when we have watchers and challengers. I think that increases our level of accountability, and that will be a word I continue to use because we have nothing to hide. I think watchers are a part of the process, and again, we welcome them. If there's something that we're doing that we shouldn't be, we need to know. If they're confused about the process and we need to clarify, then we need to clarify. So watchers are hugely helpful, and members of the public that are interested in elections and watching the process and the administration of should think about volunteering to do that with one of the political parties or organizations that have a concentrated effort to do that at polling locations.
And on to the next question, Meg.
How do you feel absentee and mail voting has made a difference in making voting more accessible?
In 2020, during this, again, infamous pandemic, we had almost half of our voters vote by mail. That included me. I remember sitting at the kitchen table with my daughter, opening an envelope that had my name on it, and being able to vote for myself, but really making thoughtful decisions as I went through the ballot. So that in itself is helpful. Some people just like the convenience. I supported a permanent absentee list. If you want to vote via absentee for the rest of your life, you're able to do so. You get on a list, you go through the application process, you get approved, you'll get a ballot every election. Now, if you decide to vote in person, then you're off the list and you have to start all over again, right? Because that's one of the layers that we have that ensures that it will not be, that it will be used correctly. So it has changed the landscape and the narrative about elections in a big way. Oregon has all mail, Colorado has a hybrid system. It's proven to be fair, it's proven to be secure, it's proven to increase turnout. And at the end of the day, we're all better if we have increased turnout.
And on to question number 15, and this will be our final question. Is there anything the county could do to ensure that voter rolls are updated?
So I do want to talk about voter rolls, and I'm glad you asked that question. So let's say at this very moment, our voter rolls were 100% up to date at this moment. 5 minutes from now, it could change. Somebody's moved, somebody wants to change their party affiliation. There are federal guidelines that we follow as county clerks, not just in New Mexico, but across the country, that guide that process. So so basically what it is if we have an address that's wrong, we get return mail, we start a process in removing. We also check our obituaries every day to make sure that we are removing those that we can find obituaries for. We also use all of the vital statistics provided by the state as well as any provided by the federal government that can remove individuals from our voter roll. We're a part of ERIC, and that's the electronic recording program that is national. I believe 30 states participate in it. So if you're in Ohio or one of the states that participate, you let us know that one of our voters is over there and they're on a list. So all of those multiple ways that we do, but we also count on the family or the estate or whoever's left behind when somebody has passed to let us know. We have to have confirmation. I can't just randomly take people off, or else you'll have a mass of problems. And we need to go through that federal process and the law as required. So voter registration on site helps because you're able to update in real time, and that means that they stay quote unquote clean. But I don't have a huge concern about our voter rolls in terms of them being clean. I think it's a process that every single day we work towards, and hopefully we will continue to put information out there that helps the public understand that they have a role in it too, in terms of removing somebody from a voter roll.
All right, thank you for your answer there, Dr. López Askin. And that was our final question for the forum. And that concludes our Doña Ana County Clerk Candidate Forum. We want to thank the incumbent Democratic candidate Amanda López Askin for joining us, and our co-moderator Meg Irish with the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico. Remember, you can stay updated with local coverage by visiting the KRWG News Election Center at our website, krwg.org. Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th. For KRWG Public Media, I'm Johnny Coker. Thanks for joining us.